Hello, and welcome to the opening webinar of our 2026 Solar Show. Today's session is called Solar 101, Solar for Your Home or Business. Please note, we have enabled closed captioning for this presentation. You can turn on the captioning in the toolbar at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We will be recording this session and making it available on our website and YouTube channel following the show. My name is Stephanie Westland, and I'm the Education Lead at Solar Alberta. I'd like to take a minute to acknowledge that I'm hosting you today and working day to day from the place traditionally called Moginstis, also known as Calgary, Alberta. Calgary is located on the traditional territories of the people of the Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta. This includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, made up of the Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai First Nations, the Îethka Stoney Nakoda Nations, made up of the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Goodstoney bands, and the Tsuut'ina First Nation. Calgary is also homeland to the historic Northwest Métis and to Métis Nation of Region 3. To start, we'd like to thank Solar Club for sponsoring the session today. We're so grateful and happy to have them as a sponsor. Today, we will be hearing from Heather McKenzie, the Executive Director of Solar Alberta. Following her presentation, there will be a question and answer period in which you can all participate. The entire session will wrap up in about an hour and a half. We will be using Zoom Q&A for questions rather than the chat box, so please enter your questions in the Q&A section throughout the presentation. Also, please click the little thumbs up symbols to upvote questions that you like. Before we move forward, we're going to do a quick poll to get a sense of who we have joining us today. Please take a minute to answer the questions popping up on your screen now. And while some of you are still doing the poll, I encourage you to also take a minute and pop your name, land acknowledgement, and any contact information you're comfortable sharing into the chat and throughout the event so that others can look you up on LinkedIn or email you. It's a great way to form new relationships. Wonderful. Thank you so much for participating. It looks as though it's mostly solar curious and also some solar and solar related industry professionals. It's always just helpful to know a little bit about who we have in the audience. And now for a little bit about Solar Alberta. Solar Alberta is now in its 35th year of operation. We are a not-for-profit society dedicated to accelerating Alberta's transition to a just and sustainable energy future. We do so by advocating, educating, and serving as an industry and community hub for solar energy. Our membership is made up of approximately 200 individuals and 140 businesses. We also have more than 34,000 followers. We provide a number of services, including managing a solar directory through our website. In this way, we act as a bridge for installers, suppliers, and other solar-related businesses to connect with their customers and clients. Our directory gets approximately 23,000 hits each year. You can see a link to it in the chat. After today's session, there will still be 5 more webinars available as part of the 2026 Solar Show. There's still time to register for all of them, including the 3 other free sessions, Solar Ready Design, Optimizing Your Solar Array, and the State of Solar Farms in Alberta. We are also running 2 affordable industry-oriented workshops. Registration for all the upcoming Solar Show sessions can be completed through the link in the chat, and there's a 10% discount for members for the paid sessions. At this point, we'd love to do a quick poll to find out which other Solar Show sessions you are planning to attend. Please take a minute to answer the question popping up on your screen now. And just a reminder that you can also find free archived videos of all of our previous free Solar Show sessions on our YouTube channel. And the recordings from the 2026 Solar Show will be available by the 2nd week of February. All previous workshops are available on our website. I'll just take a second to let a few more of you respond. But it looks like we do definitely have people joining us for several sessions. So throughout the year, we also run the Solar Series webinars. And on February 26th, we're launching our 2026 Solar Series with a webinar called Alberta Incentive to Green Your Home or Business, SEEP Explained. Registration for this webinar is free and can be completed through the link in the chat. And as with our Solar Show sessions, you can find free archived videos of all of our previous Solar Series webinars on our YouTube channel. We also offer a number of classes for those in the solar industry and those transitioning into it. We recently completed our live online courses training series and will be offering courses again next winter or fall and winter. In the meantime, we have on-demand recordings of all of our courses available for sale in the solar training videos section of our website. In addition to providing education about solar, we advocate for it. We are currently rising up for renewables. We have free lawn signs available for pickup in 10 municipalities, and we offer free delivery in 8 municipalities around Alberta. We also have template letters for you to use on our website asking the Government of Alberta to eliminate the discriminatory rules and regulations they have established for renewable energy. You can click on the link in the chat to make a free sign order or to find our template letters today. Solar Alberta's second annual golf tournament fundraiser will be held on June 8th, 2026 at the Inglewood Golf Club in Calgary. Tickets are available for individual golfers as well as at a discounted rate for a foursome. In addition, new for this year, even if you're not a golfer, you can still attend the meal at the golf club. We're also looking for sponsors for this event. More details and a link to register are available in the chat. If you're not already a Solar Alberta member, I encourage you to join. Individual members, or memberships rather, are typically $35, but are on sale this week for 20% off. They can be purchased through the link in the chat. If you are looking to support the work that we do in other ways at Solar Alberta, consider volunteering or donating. On the topic of volunteering, we have 4 board positions coming up on our board of directors. These positions will be filled at the May 6th AGM. If you're interested in becoming part of Solar Alberta's board, please use the link in the chat to apply by March 1st. Lastly, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Solar Club for sponsoring today's webinar. We couldn't offer all of the amazing free content without the support of our sponsors. We are always interested in developing more partnerships for all of our events. If you or your organization want to work with us to educate the public about solar or solar-related technologies, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm now delighted to welcome Gitaya Betty Latender to open the 2026 Solar Show with a blessing. Elizabeth Betty Latender exemplifies the principles of Bay Matswin, the Indigenous way of life, as a proud Cree woman and direct descendant of Chief Big Bear. Her life's work reflects a deep commitment to honoring her cultural heritage through leadership, advocacy, teaching, and community. Ms. Betty provides Indigenous guidance to Edmonton Catholic School District's Council of Elders, rooted in traditional teachings and her connection to elders. She integrates these teachings into education, fostering cultural understanding and spirituality within diverse communities. Her efforts extend beyond education, and she collaborates with organizations such as the City of Edmonton, the Edmonton Police Commission, the Universities of Alberta and Calgary, and various government and community agencies. Through these partnerships, she advocates for respectful, equitable, and inclusive policies, promoting reconciliation and social justice. Ms. Betty's leadership is grounded in her vision of a unified society free from discrimination, where inclusion and acceptance thrive. Her impact has been recognized with numerous accolades, including the Esqueo Lifetime Achievement Award, Inspires Guiding the Journey Award, and the Queen's Platinum Jubilee Medal. As a devoted mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother, Miss Betty continues to inspire through her dedication to family, community, and the principles of Bay Matswin. Her unwavering commitment serves as a beacon for reconciliation, cultural pride, and unity across Canada. We are so honored to have her with us today. Thank you for joining us, Miss Betty. We sincerely appreciate your willingness to bring a blessing and land acknowledgement to our event this week. I will now turn the mic over to you.
It is my honor to be here today. And as I do the blessing, I will start with my language, my first language, which is the Cree language, and then I will translate that into English. Thank you, Stephanie, and all of Solar Energy that I've been doing this for many years. And I'm always so grateful and to come and be part of this. So today I will say, Mamohte, Kakio, Ute, Udakisaka. Uma kape wizito ya kape xnamatu ya umaigo kami ase kai takamga. Pisi bawigo kami guya miopmatsuan. Ego kio wau kakio kanstustauiek, ektemagistauiek. Kio pogite otsi kape utusteek, ektemagnoen. How mamotawi mao kasawin kusia naskagis kak. How mate ganga te kaya simon. It is with honor that I give thanks today to be part of this solar energy and the energy that's been given to us long past before our memories. It has always been there, the one that gives us light and warmth throughout our lives, and that's the sun. And at night, we have the grandmother that comes. We call her our grandmother, the moon. So it is with great humbleness as human beings. Without the sun, we wouldn't be nothing. We would not be on this earth. And that energy it gives us every day, whether we see it or not, it's there. And every day that sun, when it comes up early in the morning, it too needs help to rise. And they give us that day of sunshine, we say, just like us as human beings. We all need to help each other to come together and to bring our light forth for our generations to come, those here and those now and those are yet to come. And that we come together in a good way to help each other. Sometimes as human beings, we forget we are just nothing but a little speck on Mother Earth when we look at the sun and what it provides for us, and never to take advantage of it because it provides everything that we need on this earth. And I pray that each and every one of you will be blessed and guided when we come to hold hands and to help each other this way, that for our children, for our generations, and that we as a people, are strong human beings, whether we come from different territories, Treaty 6, Treaty 7, Treaty 8, and beyond, that when we understand and help each other, we will eliminate a lot of unjust. We will eliminate all the racism, all those things that are so hurtful and killing people just by that. That is not our way. That is not what we were meant to do here on earth. So I just want to say that because there's such disharmony everywhere. And I pray that within ourselves, we find that strength. I even look at our son, and we call that the grandfather, and how it warms our hearts and warms our places and everything that we do. So I thank you for listening to me today as again we come together to celebrate this this solar energy. I always love that because it's we just need it so, and the days are getting longer, brighter, and the sun is working for us. So I thank you, Heather, and I thank the solar panel, all the people that I have worked with throughout the years, just to say thank you and humbly share that blessing with all of you. So with that, I'll say Ixamaga. In my language, there's no goodbye, but we say until the next time. For now, that's all. Ixamaga, hi hi. Keep well.
Thank you, Miss Betty. We're so grateful that and it's so special to have you here for our 6th solar show in a row. And now I'd like to turn the mic over to Darren Chu from Solar Club to introduce our speaker for the day. I look forward to chatting with all of you in the Q&A.
Thank you for that introduction, Stephanie. Imagine standing in your backyard on a bright summer day, receiving notice that your next electricity bill will be a credit as sunlight powers your home. That is the power of the Solar Club. As Stephanie mentioned, my name is Darren Chu, and I am the owner and operator of the Solar Club, one of the sponsors for this year's Solar Show. We are proud to sponsor the Solar Show because of our Solar Club has become the premier solar benefit program for small microgenerators in Alberta. The Solar Club offers members special benefits, including unique high and low rates, cashback payments, advanced data analytics, and much more. Our Solar Club is built upon 4 pillars. 1, help boost members' returns on their solar PV system investments with great rates, cashback, and the opportunity to profit from carbon credit sales. 2, help members achieve climate neutral or even climate positive status by aggregating all members' exports. 3, collectively make a positive environmental statement by exporting 500 million or 500 million kilowatt hours onto the grid by 2030. Since the program started in 2019, we have exported a total of 231 million kilowatt hours of solar energy back into Alberta's grid, enough to power over 35,000 homes for a full year. And 4, promote renewable energy certificates, or RECs, as an environmental benefit in addition to solar energy exported into the grid. This year's cashback payments highlight our momentum. Member rewards are up 175% from the previous year. In 2025 alone, members received $26 million in export credits, cashback, and free RECs, demonstrating the direct benefits of rapid solar adoption for members and the province. We are thrilled to see more members joining the Solar Club every year. Last year, we celebrated a significant milestone with the enrollment of our 10,000th member. We invite you to join us on an exciting journey to welcome the next 10,000 members into our Hummingbird virtual solar community. Together, with your support, the Solar Club can make a genuine difference. And as our motto goes, we are doing what we can, 1 kilowatt hour at a time. If you're interested in joining the Solar Club and enjoying these benefits, please sign up today by emailing sunshine@solarclub.ca. Or for more details, visit solarclub.ca or contact our customer care team, and info will be shared in the chat. I'd now like to introduce our speaker for today, Heather McKenzie. Heather McKenzie is the Executive Director of Solar Alberta, where she and her team are working hard to accelerate Alberta's transition to a just and sustainable energy future. She is a seasoned leader, community organizer, and green business advocate. Prior to becoming the Executive Director of Solar Alberta, she worked as a government relations professional, ran her own business, and served as an elected trustee on the Edmonton Public School Board. She holds a master's in public administration and a master's in international development, and has undergraduate degrees in both sociology and history. She believes that investing in solar is a very concrete way that everyday Albertans can take meaningful action on climate change. Please join me in welcoming Heather McKenzie.
Thanks so much, Darren. Appreciate the introduction. I'm just going to get my slide share up here, and appreciate the sponsorship as well. All right, folks. Well, we've got a full room today. Glad you could all join us. Just going to jump into solar for your home or business. In this presentation, I'm going to provide a brief overview of the solar sector in Alberta, including growth trends and the different types of solar installations in our province. Then I'm going to explain how a typical solar installation works on a home or business in Alberta. Following that, I'll outline the many financial considerations related to solar, and I'll wrap up by explaining how to find a solar installer. So let's get started by digging into some of the trends that we're seeing in the solar sphere in Alberta. In the last 10 years, Alberta has seen tremendous growth in all types of solar. As you can see from these graphs, whether we're talking large utility scale solar systems, which is the top graph, or much smaller systems, the bottom graph, all are trending up in this sunny province of ours. Solar used to be seen by some as a risky investment, but now it's largely accepted as a logical and necessary component of a diversified energy sector that will continue to grow in usage and market share. This shift in perception is illustrated by the impressive growth the solar sector has experienced in Alberta over the past 10 years, which we're going to provide some more details on today. A quick note to start. When we're talking about the growth of solar in Alberta, we're mostly talking about solar photovoltaics, or what you may hear referred to as solar PV. And we're not typically talking about solar thermal. Solar PV harnesses the sun's light to produce electricity, while solar thermal harnesses the sun's heat, usually to heat water. Solar PV is what's really taking off in Alberta, and it works super well in northern climates because solar PV actually has better production capability in the cold. So what's driving all this growth of solar in Alberta? There are many reasons why Alberta has become Canada's solar powerhouse, but as you can see on this map from the Government of Canada, Alberta is next only to Saskatchewan in terms of solar PV generating potential. We're also one of the few provinces in Canada where a private solar power developer can sell power directly to customers through a power purchase agreement, and investors clearly see the potential. In 2023, Alberta received 85% of Canada's overall investment in solar and wind. Another reason for the growth of solar PV, not just in Alberta but around the world, is that the cost of solar has come down a lot in recent years. Between 2010 and 2020, the cost of solar dropped by 90%. We also have a good renewable energy target contributing to the growth of solar in Alberta. In 2017, Alberta's Renewable Electricity Act legislated the goal of generating at least 30% of our province's electricity from renewable sources by 2030. Setting a concrete goal like this helps set the stage for the growth of solar and wind in Alberta. And as a result, 2 years ago, the province was actually on track to meet that 30% renewables target before the 2030 goal. In the last 2 years, however, the Government of Alberta has imposed a moratorium on solar and wind farms in the province and subsequently implemented new permanent discriminatory legislation. And so unfortunately, it is no longer certain that we will achieve that goal. As a result of the Government of Alberta's discrimination, despite our incredible potential, investment in solar farms in Alberta has all but dried up. Business Renewable Centre Canada reported today that power purchase agreements in Alberta have dropped by 99% from 2023, when we received 85% of Canada's overall investment in solar and wind. Our Thursday lunch hour session is going to go into greater detail about that recent shift for solar farms in Alberta, but I just wanted to make sure you folks were aware of that today. All right, so there are a wide range of solar system sizes and purposes in this province. Over the next few slides, I'm going to quickly review the 5 main types of solar installations and show some examples of each type of array. Systems that have the capacity to generate more than 5 megawatts of energy are classified as utility scale. You've probably heard those power plants referred to as solar farms. Utility scale solar projects can be sized to generate as much energy as is approved by the Alberta Utilities Commission, so they can maximize the solar energy generating potential of their site and participate in Alberta's energy market just like any other power plant. The solar farm here is the Traverse Solar Project in Vulcan County. It is 465 megawatts in size. Utility scale solar has been in the news a lot over the past few years. As I mentioned, they have become increasingly difficult to build because of recent actions by the Government of Alberta. There's also industrial solar. So industrial solar installations are used primarily to meet the energy needs of an industrial site. Alberta's oil and gas sites have used solar to generate some of their electricity since the early 2000s. Electricity from these installations is referred to as behind the meter, meaning it's produced on the site that it's primarily meant to serve. So the electricity is generated on the consumer side of the utility electricity meter. Industrial solar can be utility scale in size despite generating electricity on the customer side, because Alberta's industrial sites often need a lot of electricity to operate. So by way of example, this picture shows the 58 megawatt Scotford refinery solar farm completed in 2024. The energy generated by this solar farm is primarily being used to power Shell Canada's Scotford refinery. The solar farm provides approximately 20% of the refinery's energy needs. Before we move on to the other types of solar, I just want to briefly touch on the Government of Alberta's microgeneration regulation, which came into effect around 2008. In Alberta, microgeneration refers primarily to solar installations that are under 5 megawatts, which, as you'll see in the upcoming slides, is still pretty big. This regulation allows homes and businesses to meet their own electricity needs by generating electricity from renewable or alternative energy sources. To become a microgenerator, the application process is much less onerous than the process for large power plants because of this regulation. All microgeneration installations, whether residential or commercial, must be sized to produce equal to or less than the annual on-site electricity consumption. For example, if your household currently consumes 5,000 kilowatt hours of electricity per year, you cannot install a solar system that will produce more than 5,000 kilowatt hours over the course of a year. Similarly, if you have a business that consumes 30,000 kilowatt hours of electricity per year, you can install a solar system that produces up to 30,000 kilowatt hours per year. So our members, if you're chatting with our members, they're going to be teaching you this anytime you're looking at getting a new system. There are both large and small microgeneration systems. Large microgeneration systems are over 150 kilowatts, and they're often called commercial systems. You might hear that phrase. They power bigger buildings or operations, such as farms or recreation centers. This slide shows some large microgeneration from around Alberta, including Genesis Place in Airdrie, a poultry farm in Linden, and Banff's Fenlands Recreation Centre. If these developers use the microgeneration regulation to get on the grid, then they can typically get a project done in 6 months to 2 years. As mentioned in the previous slide, they would not be allowed to install a system that produces more than they consume on site in this situation. If you want to produce extra, you got to jump through all the power plant hoops is the main thing to know. All right, then we have also microgeneration arrays under 150 kilowatts, which are considered small microgeneration systems. Again, here we still see some larger projects despite the micro and small names. Some of these arrays help power malls and schools. The slide includes the new solar installation on the roof of Calgary's Chinook Centre Mall, as well as an array on Canmore Collegiate High School. Small microgeneration also refers to residential solar installations, and you've likely spotted a few solar arrays on homes in your neighborhood. These residential systems are very, very small, usually around 7 kilowatts. In addition to microgeneration, industrial solar, and utility scale solar projects, the community solar space is also emerging in Alberta. Community generation is where a group of people come together and invest in a solar development that is not on their own property. A number of cooperatives, community leagues, and Indigenous nations are leading the way with community generation in Alberta. Here, pictured here, is the Renfrew Solar Carport at the Spark Science Centre in Calgary. It has 2,292 solar panels, which produce 1.2 million kilowatt hours of electricity annually. While community generation is still in its early stages in Alberta, it has the potential to allow apartment dwellers, renters, and others who don't have a solar appropriate roof an opportunity to contribute to solar production in Alberta, and experience the associated financial benefits. We have numerous free webinars about community generation that you can find on our YouTube channel. And we also have a couple of members actively fundraising for community generation projects at this time. And you can look up those solar investment opportunities on our website. So, as you can sense from all these examples I've just shown, we've been experiencing tremendous growth in all types of solar around the province. Let's just come back quickly to the graph from the beginning of the presentation, which shows the enormous growth in utility scale systems. Remember, these are also called solar farms or solar power plants. These are systems that have the capacity to generate more than 5 megawatts of energy. In December 2017, Alberta had 15 megawatts of utility scale solar generating capacity. By November 2024, solar farm capacity totaled over 1,800 megawatts. And as mentioned earlier, sadly, our utility scale solar has largely been flatlined in recent years due to new government regulations. As such, there was only an increase of 50 megawatts over the last year. Simply put, a lot of shovels just aren't hitting the ground. Even for planned and approved projects, that is the case. However, if projects don't continue to be stalled due to new Government of Alberta red tape and discriminatory costs, solar farms are anticipated to increase by an additional 16,000 megawatts of generating capacity by 2029. Despite all of this growth, solar still makes up only a small percentage of Alberta's total electricity generating capacity. In 2025, we were just 4%, and demand for electricity, of course, is expected to continue to grow with increased electrification of home heating, vehicles, and of course, the AI centers we've heard about. So we have a long way to go to meet the stated goal of net zero electricity in Alberta. Just want to touch a little more on the growth of solar and how it fits into the big picture. These two graphs are from the Alberta Market Surveillance Administrator report for the last quarter of 2024. The graph on the top shows the growth in megawatts of both wind and solar assets in Alberta since 2020. According to the report, the increased capacity of these renewable sources has been putting downward pressure on the price of electricity in Alberta. That said, compared to natural gas, wind and solar are still fairly small players in Alberta's electricity system. This is highlighted by the graph on the bottom, which shows the types of generation that are responsible for setting electricity prices in Alberta. Don't be confused by the orange. That's not solar. The orange on that graph is actually natural gas. In 2024, on average, natural gas supplied 78% of the electricity to our grid. Wind supplied 14% and solar supplied 3%. We don't have an updated graph for 2025 yet, but in 2025, wind's contribution increased slightly to 15% and solar's contribution increased to 4%. Hydro and biomass constitute another 4% combined. In addition to the dominance of natural gas, the orange in the market, this graph also shows the phase out of coal generation in Alberta since 2019. That's indicated by the gray. And what we at Solar Alberta find super neat about the graph is that in 2024 and a little bit in 2023, we begin to see an emerging role for solar generation, indicated by the tiny strip of light yellow near the top. And that role is there for setting and, as mentioned, reducing the price of electricity in Alberta. One reason that solar can reduce the price of electricity in Alberta is because it actually costs nothing to operate a solar array. And maintenance costs are very minimal compared to other forms of power plants. We have a seminar from 2 Januaries ago on our YouTube channel that goes into detail about the impacts of solar on the grid and how it can reduce the cost of electricity for all ratepayers. Now let's also come back to the microgeneration graph briefly that I showed at the beginning. The graph on the top shows the incredible rate of microgeneration growth on homes and businesses from 2014 to 2025. In 2014, we had approximately 1,000 microgenerators on the grid. By 2020, we had more than 5,000 homes and businesses with solar in Alberta. And just 6 years later, we have more than 42,000 systems. In 2020, we were getting about 100 new sites a month. That's when I started at Solar Alberta, so I remember that, and I thought that was pretty cool at the time. But the graph on the bottom shows the growth in just the last year alone, which showed consistently almost 1,000 new sites per month for a total of more than 11,000 solar PV systems installed in 2025. So truly remarkable growth. Overall, microgenerators in the province today constitute approximately 435 megawatts of installed capacity. So to contrast that capacity with the utility scale solar that we saw on the previous slide, by January 2026, solar farm capacity in Alberta totaled more than 1,850 megawatts. So microgenerators make a smaller contribution to our grid on the whole, but they still make a meaningful contribution. When you put all of the microgenerators together, they make up a nice big solar farm akin to the Traverse Solar Farm in Vulcan County that I mentioned earlier. Another interesting fact about our microgenerators is that our microgenerators alone are producing twice as much electricity from solar as the provinces of BC and Saskatchewan combined. And at the end of 2024, BC had only 101 megawatts of solar in total on their grid. And by September 2025, Saskatchewan had just 107 megawatts in total. So those numbers for BC and Saskatchewan are a combination of both utility scale and microgeneration in those provinces. So Alberta microgenerators are certainly not a bit player when you consider us as a whole. Awesome. So we've completed our overview of the solar sector in Alberta. So hopefully you'll have a bit of a better understanding of where we all fit into the big picture. Let's turn now to how solar generation works on a typical home or business in Alberta. And it is different from province to province, so that's why we like to go into detail here. So please imagine this is your home or business. First, sunlight's going to hit the solar modules that are installed on your roof, which is number 1 on this graphic. In the northern hemisphere, south-facing roofs get the best sun, but flat roofs or east and west-facing roofs also work. The PV modules convert sunlight into DC or direct current electricity. This electricity travels to the inverter, indicated by number 2, which converts the DC electricity into the AC or alternating current electricity that your home uses. The electricity is then fed into your home's main electrical panel, shown by number 3. From here, the electricity generated by the solar system can go in one of 2 directions. When you install solar, you get a bidirectional meter from your utility provider, shown by number 5. The bidirectional meter keeps track of both the electricity taken from the grid as well as the electricity put onto the grid. When your solar system is generating electricity, anything in your home that is plugged in, such as appliances or an EV, will use that electricity first, as indicated by number 4. Since this electricity is coming directly from your solar system, rather than the electricity grid, you are not being charged for that electricity. If your solar system is generating more electricity than your house is consuming, then the extra electricity can go back to the main power grid, indicated by number 6, because it isn't being used by the household. And that will show up as a credit on your electricity bill. When calculating the maximum size of your solar system, an installer will typically review the homeowner's electricity bills from the previous 12 months. As mentioned earlier, under Alberta's microgeneration regulation, the maximum size of a home system will be based on the home's typical annual electricity usage. In Alberta, homes with solar energy will almost always remain connected to the utility grid. This allows the grid to serve as an auxiliary system that will supply the home with electricity when it needs more than the solar installation produces. For instance, at night, when it's cloudy, or during the darker winter months. Also, the home's connection to the grid is what enables the homeowner to generate credits in the summer when they are producing more electricity than they need. Because we are looking at energy production over the period of a year, your solar system in Alberta will usually underproduce from November to February and overproduce from May to August. This graph shows the typical solar production curve in Alberta. You can see that not much energy gets produced from November to February because, of course, there is much less sunlight during these months. These two graphs here come from a Solar Alberta staff member's solar array, which was connected to the grid in 2022. The graph on the top shows the monthly comparison over the last 4 years and the first few days of 2026. As you can see, the graph follows the same shape of the graph on the previous slide, with much lower production from November through February. But there is some variation in monthly production based on cloud cover, rain, snow, and even smoke, unfortunately, especially in the summer months. The graph on the bottom, meanwhile, shows the yearly comparison, and that even though there was variance in the amount of energy produced each month, the solar array produces approximately the same amount of energy over the course of each year. All right, so let's review some financial considerations related to solar. One of the primary reasons people adopt solar in Alberta is because getting solar for your home or business will reduce two utility bill components. First, it will reduce the amount you pay for electricity. With a properly sized system, if you have enough good roof space, over the course of the year, you can save close to 100% of the energy charge component of your bill. This is the amount of power in kilowatt hours that you consume at your home. You won't need to pay the utility company for that because they're no longer making your electricity. But it's important to note that this isn't immediate. What you'll want to look at in your energy charge what you'll want to look at is your energy charge over the course of the year, because the credits you generate in the summer will offset those less sunny winter months when you're importing and buying more electricity from your retailer. Second, solar will reduce the variable components of what you pay for transmission and distribution. Transmission and distribution fees cover the electrical infrastructure that's needed to connect you to the grid. These costs have both a fixed and a variable component. The fixed component will not change regardless of how much electricity you use in the month. But solar can help reduce the variable component, which changes based on the amount of electricity you use. In addition to the fixed transmission and distribution costs that solar cannot eliminate, solar also won't eliminate administrative or local access fees. These are fixed costs that come from simply being attached to the grid, and you should be very wary of any salesperson who tells you that solar will reduce your bill to zero. Solar is also unlikely to impact your home or water heating charges because most homes in Alberta use natural gas furnaces and water heat. If you want to reduce your heating charges and move towards full net zero energy, you can switch to electric devices that your solar system can power, such as a heat pump for heating and cooling your home or a heat pump water heater. One question we often get related to financial considerations is about roof materials and roof condition. The two best roofing materials for solar installation are asphalt shingles and standing seam metal. With standing seam metal, your installer does not even have to penetrate the roof for the install because they can just clip it right on there instead. So that's kind of our dream scenario. Obviously, the best time to get solar is when you have a new roof or an almost new roof. If your roof is more than 10 years old, you can expect that at some point you're going to have to take the panels off and then get them reinstalled after replacing the shingles. So the estimated cost for that reinstallation and deinstallation is around $5,000 or so. If you have an asphalt roof that's more than 20 years old, installers will generally and should generally recommend replacing the shingles before installing solar. And if you're unsure about the age of your roof, it's best to call a professional to assess the roof condition. Good news is that our solar panels will likely protect and extend the life of your roof. And in more good news, we recently added a roofing category to our directory, our solar directory, as an increasing number of our business members are offering this service in conjunction with solar. Another roofing question we get asked a lot is about orientation. So while a south-facing pitched roof is ideal for a solar installation, east and west orientations also work very well, and solar designers and installers can accommodate a wide range of conditions. It's best to contact an installer to understand how your roof will work And we also have a checklist on our website you can download to review a number of the important solar-ready home considerations, including roof materials and design, and of course a presentation on solar-ready design considerations tomorrow morning. Here in Alberta, which is very unique to Alberta, we can choose our electricity provider. So the cost of electricity will depend on the retailer. Many Albertans can choose the regulated rate or seek a competitive price retailer, 13 of whom are currently members of Solar Alberta and can be found in our directory. All retailers will offer different rates, so to shop around for an affordable rate, Albertans can use the Utilities Consumer Advocates Cost Comparison tool. It lays out all the different retailers available in Alberta and their different rates. Your electricity retailer may also offer what's called a solar-specific retail plan, through which you can opt into different electricity rates, higher during the summer if you're overproducing, and lower during the winter when you'll be underproducing. This can be beneficial because it allows you to export electricity from your home to the grid at a higher rate when your system generates more electricity in the summer, and then pay less in the winter when you're not generating as much electricity. We're going to be learning more about solar-specific pricing plans at our noon session tomorrow. In order to be able to hold your retailer accountable to the Alberta Solar Business Code of Conduct, though, you should primarily be plugging the 13 retailers from our directory into that cost comparison tool. Our Code of Conduct is found under the Consumer Protection tab on our homepage, and our directory is under the Go Solar tab. If you're interested in solar for your own home, you can rest assured in the knowledge that renewable energy and energy efficiency are home improvements that pay for themselves. Solar panels are generally warranted for 25 years, and they can actually last up to 40 or 50. So they will add value to your home for quite some time and pay for themselves over time by reducing your monthly electricity bills. It's important to keep all of these benefits in mind when thinking about your solar system return on investment. Nowadays, a typical home install can cost between $10,000 to $30,000, which can take about 7 to 15 years to pay back. Your installer will calculate your estimated payback time as part of the initial quote process. Your payback time will depend on your particular circumstances and can differ significantly from region to region, even around the province, as well as the size and cost of the solar array you select, the amount of electricity you consume, and the mechanism you choose to finance your installation. As we mentioned earlier, your system will be sized to cover your current electricity usage. This means you can improve upon your system payback time by taking steps to further reduce your electricity consumption, or by completing energy efficiency upgrades like switching to energy efficient appliances or turning off the lights and appliances more after your solar installation has been completed. We're going to have more on that at our lunchtime session tomorrow as well. And finally, another consideration for the overall cost and payback time with solar is the property value increase. Now, there isn't much data available in Canada yet regarding home resale value with solar, but research in the US has shown that homes with solar arrays typically sell for about 4% more than those without. This is likely because a house with solar panels already installed will have significantly reduced future electricity bills. And many home buyers appreciate that, of course. It's also because solar panels are typically warranted for 25 years and actually last much longer than that, so they are a long-term improvement to a house. Earlier in this presentation, I mentioned how utility-scale solar can and is bringing the price of electricity down for all Albertans. Given that our members are primarily rooftop experts, we would be remiss not to also mention a new study by environmental analysis firm M3 Consulting out of California, which showed that over the long term, rooftop solar also makes electricity cheaper for everyone, even those who don't have solar panels. It decreases peak demand on our grid, which reduces the requirements for utilities to expand the grid, and also reduces the need for Albertans to buy electricity from other jurisdictions, like BC or the USA. Although an installation of $10,000 to $30,000 is a lot for many Albertans to afford, there are some solar financing programs available to help.
25 municipalities around Alberta, including Calgary and Edmonton, are implementing SEEP. SEEP stands for the Clean Energy Improvement Program. It is a financing approach that allows for solar or energy efficiency upgrades to be financed through the property tax payment process and have the cost of the upgrade tied to the property rather than the property owner. If a municipality has SEEP financing in place, then potential solar owners sometimes do not need to put any money down, and they can begin to pay back the cost of the solar installation on a monthly basis, often over 20 years, with a low interest rate. Additionally, SEEP, that monthly payment can typically be passed on to the next homeowner if the new homeowner moves in before the previous homeowner has completed the payments. Some SEEP programs will pay out for upfront costs and then will pay the contractor directly for the remaining cost when the project is complete. Each municipality is running the program a bit differently. So sometimes there might be additional costs associated with a solar array if your roof or electrical wiring needs to be upgraded or replaced. In the case of SEEP, these can often be partially included in the financing, which is pretty cool. For those of you interested in exploring SEEP, we are offering a free webinar on February 26th that will go into much more detail than we're able to cover today. In terms of commercial solar or solar for businesses, there is a new Canadian Clean Technology Investment Tax Credit that the CRA and NORCAN are mutually responsible for. This is a 30% refundable tax credit for businesses that install solar. There's also a grant program run by Emissions Reduction Alberta called the Strategic Energy Management for Industry Program, or SEMI. This program is for industrial and manufacturing facilities, and we hosted a webinar about it at our solar show last January, so you can find that on our YouTube channel. You can also learn more about this grant for 20% of your solar project at eralberta.ca. Okay, so now you know all about solar in our province, installing solar and incentives that you may qualify for. Of course, you're wondering how to find someone to do it. Solar Alberta's got you covered there. An excellent resource for finding a solar installer in Alberta is the Solar Alberta website, solaralberta.ca. On our website, you're going to find a map that shows solar installations near you, as well as our solar directory. Our directory gets 23,000 hits every year, and it lists more than 140 Solar Alberta business members. You can see helpful information like how many systems a company has installed, how long they've been in business. You can also filter by various commitments and certifications that our members have, such as whether they're B Corp certified or a living wage employer. That can really help you start to narrow your search down. You can also submit a request for proposals or quotes from the companies that you're interested in right on our website. We recommend you get at least 3 quotes. Anytime you're spending $20,000, I hope you're getting at least 3 quotes for any product like that. You'll want to compare the quotes to determine how long the warranties are for their products and their workmanship, as well as what their process is for maintenance. So inverters usually have about a 10-year warranty. Solar modules, as I mentioned, typically have 25 to 30-year warranty. Warranties for workmanship can differ a lot. Sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 10 years. So definitely check that out. And when getting quotes, we recommend you request references and proof of insurance from the companies. We also recommend you compare the installer's various financing options. Financing options change very often, and your installer is going to be a great source of information for that wildly varying subject. All right, as we head into the Q&A section of today's session, I just want to get out ahead of one question that we almost always get asked about, especially at this time of year, which is snow. Did you know snow doesn't impact solar energy production very much in Alberta? You likely remember this graph showing a typical solar production curve in Alberta from earlier in my presentation. You can see that not much energy gets produced in November to February. The primary reason for lower solar energy production in these months is because there is much less light than during other months. And if you'll recall, the production in the summer makes up for the losses in the winter. So as long as you have adequate roof space, your installer can ensure that your system is sized to offset your consumption over the course of a full year. Interestingly, Nate here in Edmonton did a study that's shown by the image on the top. They determined that snow cover only reduced winter productivity by about 3%, because snow arrives right around the same time that we have the most darkness in Alberta. And because snow melts off the solar modules quite quickly on warmer days. Your solar panels might get a bit of snow cover, but cleaning the snow off is typically not recommended. When you try to clear your panels of snow, you risk damaging the panels themselves and also your back. And that will have a much greater negative impact on the efficiency of the panels. And with that, I would love to turn my screen share off, and we're going to jump into the Q&A and welcome Stephanie back to moderate that. Looking forward to answering your questions.
Super. Thanks so much, Heather. So again, just a reminder that we do have the Q&A section. There's a Q&A little box at the bottom of your screen. And so if you want to ask any questions, just pop them in there. And then there's also a way to upvote the questions. And so it's just like a little thumbs up, and you can click that. And so just that way we'll get to the questions that have the most upvotes first, since we might not be able to get to all of your questions. All right, Heather. So, going with the most upvotes, there's a question from Brent Lubert. He is asking, what is the risk that the current Alberta government, with its anti-renewable energy stance, will create obstacles to the future viability of the Solar Club?
Well, this government is full of surprises, so so that's a fun question to answer. I never thought they would interfere with the utility scale solar scene, so I don't want to say it's impossible that they would interfere with the microgenerators as well. However, I will say that I have heard this government speak favorably about rooftop solar in particular on numerous occasions. It was even mentioned in the throne speech when Danielle Smith first came into office. Now, she hasn't done anything other than the SEMI program to benefit rooftop solar, but she has not gotten in the way of the SEEP program. So obviously their government is comfortable with the low interest loan program that municipalities are rolling out. And they haven't opened up the microgeneration regulation. There were some rumblings that perhaps they might look at that. I believe there was a consultation that we participated in through the AUC recently around that. But nothing from the government of Alberta at this time. So in order to mess with microgenerators, they would have to mess with the microgeneration regulation. We are hoping that they will not, as Canada, our microgeneration regulation is superior to pretty much all others in Canada. So that would be really disappointing. If they do open up the microgeneration regulation, there are some areas where we would like to see a bit of improvement. So we'll be advocating hard for that. And I'd just like to encourage you all, we have an Advocate With Us section on our website. If you follow that, we'll be able to let you know if there's anything going on with the microgeneration regulation that might impede our ability to see those financial benefits mentioned earlier. So yeah, stay tuned and definitely become a member. Every month we send out updates to our members about our advocacy work. And again, we try and follow that very closely. But thus far, all indications are that the government of Alberta does not have a hate on for rooftop solar yet. So fingers crossed. Hopefully that holds.
All right. There's so many questions coming in fast and furious. It's jumping around on me. There's a question from Linda. What can you tell us about balcony solar like we're seeing so much of in Germany?
Yeah. So balcony solar is something we've definitely started reading about at Solar Alberta. There's not a lot of mechanisms right now in Canada for folks to adopt a lot of balcony solar, but there's definitely lots of that happening in Europe, so I'm glad you noticed that. I will say that typically the cheapest place, like if you have a roof, that's probably going to be the easiest and cheapest place to install solar. And often in Alberta, people will max out on the amount of electricity they can produce just based on their roof alone. So then they don't really need the balconies or the awnings or things. For apartment dwellers, of course, if they don't have a roof that they can use, balcony solar would be very interesting for us to sort of explore. But it's going to take, I think, more exploration before you see that happening here in Alberta. There'll definitely need to be some various regulatory shifts and changes, I think, in consultation with the various utilities about how that's going to work here. So I haven't seen much of it yet. There are definitely a couple apartments around Edmonton where there's balcony solar, but it's done across the entire building. And so to me, it's not just like an individual doing it, it's the whole building doing it. So I've certainly seen that happening, and there are still schools in Edmonton where they've got solar awnings above windows. And so at a larger scale, we are seeing some of that happening here in Alberta. We're just not seeing that sort of like buy a solar module and then use it on your balcony to charge something quite yet. But maybe we'll get there. I'm just not sure yet if you'll be able to export any of that and how that'll all work. So I apologize, I don't know more about how that's going to work. A couple of our members, there are some consultants in our directory who might be able to give you more information about balcony solar. So definitely check with our members about that. They may have heard more rumblings about that. But it is on our radar as something to research because we've seen a lot. I will say from a climate change perspective, the impact of balcony solar would be probably very small when you think like a solar farm, over 400 megawatts, and then your home is 7 kilowatts, and then if you were just doing a balcony, I don't know if there would be much of a impact on the overall electricity grid, but you might be able to like charge your stove or something, and so it might be nice for you as an individual. So we may see a little bit more of that, but I do suspect we'll need to see some regulatory adjustments, and probably EPCOR and MAX and all those wire providers will have to be in the mix before they'll sign off on anything like that. I suspect the municipalities will have a say on that too. So it could be a very complicated subject here, but yeah, I'm curious to see what happens with that, because it's a nice visible sign of passion and interest in the environment, and people just taking matters into their own hands. So I sort of love it.
Right. Okay, Keith is wondering if you can discuss battery use in PV systems.
So we actually have a whole session on batteries Thursday morning. So I just wanted to point that out for everybody. If you're interested in batteries, you can check that out. A lot of our members do install batteries. So if you check on our directory, you can get a lot of expertise about battery installation. Generally speaking, in Alberta, because we don't have any demand side management yet, there's no like incentives to store energy in Alberta yet. So there hasn't been a proliferation of energy storage systems here. There's still a little bit cost prohibitive if there's no incentives in place for storage. That said, recently the Premier did actually write a mandate letter to Minister Neudorf saying he should try and get some demand side management going in Alberta. So there may, at some point in the next few years, come a time where we have some incentives like some of the other provinces have to store more of our electricity. And we're definitely seeing a bit of that. So we actually had a webinar, I think it was November, on Alberta's first virtual power plant. And if you want to go on our YouTube channel and check that out, Emissions Reduction Alberta paid for 100 homes to have batteries installed. And they are kind of playing around with that concept of, what does it look like if you combine solar and batteries more? So I would check the VPP webinar out on our YouTube channel from November, and definitely ask our installers about batteries for your home. And depending on the house, there might be good reason to go for it, right? Definitely off-grid folks like to have batteries. That's kind of essential if you're off-grid. And we're going to actually have a session in May, I believe it's May, on microgrids, where we'll probably talk more about batteries. Is it April or May, Stephanie, the microgrid session?
It's May. May 27th.
Yeah, so we're going to do more. We have an old microgrid session from a couple years ago on our YouTube channel that touches on batteries if you're off-grid, but only like 1% of Albertans are off-grid. So it's a very niche group that are interested in that. But yeah, batteries are really cool. We love them. we can't wait to see more of them, and we just really hope that Alberta adopts some incentives for batteries soon, because we're definitely seeing BC and others are moving fast and furious on batteries, and they're a perfect and beautiful and logical complement to solar.
Great. Okay, so Michael is planning to buy an EV soon, within the next 3 to 4 years, but wants to install panels sooner, within 1 year. Is there a way to navigate the fact that the demand from the EV would not show on our average usage because they don't have it yet?
Not unless you have a bill of sale. If you have a bill of sale, then the utility will allow you to factor in the EV. If you don't have a bill of sale, you will not be allowed to factor in the EV until you have it. So I had a solar system, 7 kilowatts, before buying an EV. Then we got an EV, and then our solar system wasn't generating enough for everything. So we weren't net zero anymore. So that was kind of sad. So we did install a second system now to make sure we're net zero again. That is an expensive route to go. If I had known we were going to buy an EV, I probably would have gotten it first, and then I would have got my solar. But it depends on the size of your roof too. I mean, if you can't accommodate more than 7 kilowatts, then just give her. But if you can accommodate 11, then you might want to wait and just do the solar after you have the bill of purchase or the bill of sale. They're going to need to see the bill. They won't settle for like, I've done a $1,000 deposit or something, like that type of thing. They're going to be, there's the wire providers, the utilities are sticklers on that. They need to see evidence that you've purchased it, and that's because of the microgeneration regulation in Alberta. So it's not like they're being mean, it's just they're in charge of doing what the regulation requires. And the same for a heat pump. It's a little different for a heat pump. A heat pump bill of sale won't be enough if you also have a natural gas furnace. If you just have a heat pump and no natural gas furnace, they'll take a bill of sale and you can factor that into your solar. But if you have a heat pump and an auxiliary natural gas furnace, they're going to want to see a year's worth of usage or some type of assessment of your energy efficiency of your home before they let you factor that in. We have a blog on that from way back, so if you want our blog about heat pumps, just message us and we'll get you our heat pump blog. So that's always fun. But for an EV, I've never heard of anyone being allowed to factor that in without a bill of sale.
Thanks, Heather. Okay, so Kelly, must be in Edmonton, is wondering about the options available for community leagues. Kelly says often they cannot access conventional financing such as SEEP, bank loans, etc. Their own bylaws may also prohibit them from taking on a loan.
Yeah, there's a problem right now in Alberta for nonprofits. The SEMI program doesn't include nonprofits. The federal program for commercial program doesn't include nonprofits. It's a huge oversight. So one of the things that Solar Alberta is advocating for is supports for nonprofits. So I'd really encourage community leagues to join Solar Alberta in asking the federal government to include nonprofits in their incentive programs, because it's pretty shocking that they forgot about the nonprofits. All these businesses can get 30% tax refunded, but anyways, it's very frustrating. So I wish I had better news for you. I can say that there are a few cooperatives that are working with community leagues and others to put up solar systems for them. So you could consider working with some of our Solar Alberta cooperatives who might be willing to kind of do a joint venture of sorts on your roof. That's one option. But yeah, it's very difficult for nonprofits right now, and the incentive programs currently are not set up well for you. And that is something we're advocating on, because you sort of got lost. Everybody seemed to be thinking about nonprofits right around, 2015, 2016, and then they kind of forgot they existed in the last 5 years. So we're going to bat for nonprofits, but we need help with that. Because they're being excluded from all of the incentive programs that I've heard of so far.
Okay, Jenna has an easy question. What was the metal roof that was best situated for the new solar designs?
Standing seam metal roof costs more up front, but it's well worth it. Very, very nice. Just clip those babies on, no penetration, nobody falling through your roof. Just kidding. Anyways, and I will say that we're having a session tomorrow morning about solar ready design where we talk a little bit more about roof and all that stuff. So, and there's a checklist on our website for solar ready considerations that you can look for as well. But yeah, the standing seam metal is lovely. And actually, cool thing is sometimes it's on like really old buildings where you don't really expect it. You know, you think, oh, this must be some new technology, but no, it's on a lot of old fire halls and things like that. So they're ready for solar quite easily.
Okay. Anonymous attendee is saying, does anyone expect Alberta to adopt a time of use rate scheme at the residential level?
Yes, I do. I do expect something because of the mandate letter that the Premier gave to Minister Neudorf. The mandate letter said do something on demand side management. And so typically when you see some types of demand side management roll out, it's often time of use incentives that you see. So also I know that all of the utilities like ATCO, ENMAX, Fortis, EPCOR, all of them have been pushing really hard on this topic. And they've been running numerous pilot projects. I mean, I feel like Alberta's piloting this stuff to death. I'd like to let's get past the pilot, right? But it is sort of happening. It's just happening a little slower here. But it is one of the areas where I'm most optimistic. It seems that when it comes to demand side management and whatnots, folks have managed to depoliticize that a bit. So I think it might be able to go ahead regardless of who's in power. I don't want to jinx it, but there are a couple programs where everyone's a little bit aligned. The Clean Energy Improvement Program is a nonpartisan program. Nobody seems to see that as a political spectrum issue, and I'm hoping demand side management will also be seen as sort of a logical extension and a way of achieving greater grid reliability as we go into our electricity future here. So hopefully.
Great. Suzanne is wondering what kind of maintenance is recommended for a residential rooftop solar power system.
None, really. I mean, little to none. You do have an app, and you'll want to watch the app to make sure that things are happening on your app. So, when your solar installer says we're done, and here's your app, and, do keep an eye on it, because if for some reason something's looking funny and you see like, oh, that doesn't seem to be operating, you need to call them back, and that's why they'll have a workmanship warranty. But assuming everything's installed correctly and whatnot, it's pretty hands off. So, I got my system over 5 years ago. No one's been up there to do anything ever since. It's just been running tickety-boo. So, pretty easy. Just throw them on, watch your app, and it's awesome. So solar's pretty reliable for most people. We also have a Solar Alberta group on Facebook, and if you ever see something funny on your app, in addition to messaging the installer, you can also message the group and be like, hey, this is funny on my app, and then all sorts of fun nerds will come out and help you out with your if there's anything that might be going wrong with your system.
The one thing that I would add to that, if you don't mind, Heather,
Please.
is that you'll for sure want to review your contract with your installer. I think for my system, it does say that occasional maintenance may be required, and we did actually have our installer out just to make sure everything was tightened this summer and everything like that. So
Nice.
make sure to check your contract.
Well, see what's available. I shouldn't say no one's ever touched it. I think we did have someone putting bird guards up recently because the pigeons were going under it, and we didn't really love listening to pigeons all day while and so we did get them back to throw up the bird guards. So there was somebody up there recently, but it wasn't for maintenance purposes. But that's good to know, Stephanie. You had folks just checking it out. I hope it was all free.
I think there was a small cost to it, but
Okay.
yeah.
Just for reassurance, especially for people who like reassurance. I would say you and I are a little different. That's that way, Stephanie. I'm just like, give her. I trust you completely. You're a slightly more cautious consumer, so that's good.
Yeah. Okay, Petra is wondering, what are the reasons why we can't produce more than the yearly need?
Well, in short, it's because you're not going through a lengthy application process. So when the government of Alberta decided we're going to allow homes and businesses to become power plants, and we're not going to make them go through this 4 to 5 year process, we're going to allow them to do it in a shorter time frame, then they had to kind of de-risk it. And so from their perspective in 2008, there was a small risk they were worried about. They thought, well, what if all Albertans adopt solar all at the same time? Then how can we possibly accommodate all the electricity that they're wanting to give us? So there's a bit of a concern that if all of us are suddenly producing tons and tons of electricity, the grid can't receive what we have to offer. So the wire providers like EPCOR and EMAX and ATCO and Fortis and others, they're basically trying to make sure that the grid can receive what we have to offer. Now, what we've learned since 2008 is not all Albertans have gone and adopted solar overnight, unfortunately. So there really hasn't been that problem on the grid, and it was a little bit overblown and probably not a big deal. So one of the things Solar Alberta is advocating for, if the government of Alberta opens up the microgeneration regulation, is we would like them to get rid of the cap on production for your typical residential system, because we are not really causing them problems. Now, when you think about microgenerators though, malls are microgenerators, schools are microgenerators. And if all of those larger installations did start producing tons and tons of electricity and exporting to the grid at the same time, it would overwhelm them. So we have to be cautious and thoughtful about what we ask for. For example, if you allowed West Edmonton Mall in Edmonton to produce as much as they physically could on their parking lot and their roof, there'd be so much electricity being produced there that EPCOR wouldn't be able to allow any of the homeowners in West Edmonton to produce electricity because they couldn't handle all of it. And so one installation would result in everybody else having to not produce. And so that would be a problem. So that's part of why we're asking for residential units to be allowed to overproduce, because we're not really causing any problems. And the grid can handle what we have to offer. So we are advocating for that amendment to the microgeneration regulation if they open up that regulation, and definitely check out our Advocate With Us section of our website to follow that. But I understand the rationale when that first came into being and they didn't want us to overproduce. It was so that they could expedite our applications, get us through, get us operating and moving quickly without sitting around thinking, can we handle this? Can't we handle this? Because the longer they have to think about whether they can handle what we want to offer in terms of electricity to the grid, the longer the application process takes. And that's part of why a large power plant takes many years to go through the process. So they basically reduce the red tape for us and for us microgenerators. And when they reduce the red tape for us microgenerators, they also said, okay, as long as you're just doing this for self-consumption primarily and not primarily for export to the grid, because that just kind of de-risked the whole piece for them. You can't really take away the red tape if you're not taking away any of the risks. So I think that's the background. This all predated me, so there are some folks who were around when 2008, and you can probably find them in our directory, and they could probably walk you through what was going on at that time. But that's a brief summary of what I've managed to learn to date.
Okay. Thanks, Heather. Jay has a question about advertising where he sees that you can get solar for free installation. And he says he's heard, or she perhaps, they've heard that the feds do not do this now.
So the Canada Greener Homes program that you're thinking of is gone. That's true. There is no 0% interest loan anymore from the federal government. They took that away last year. The federal rebate for solar was taken away a couple years ago. So what the advertisements are generally referring to when you hear that is the new Clean Energy Improvement Program that we're going to learn more about in February. And in some municipalities in Alberta, not all by a long shot, when you use the Clean Energy Improvement Program, you can sometimes get your solar installation on a low interest loan from your municipality with no extra cost up front. It's super rare and it really differs from municipality to municipality. But when you see that advertisement, they're really talking specifically about a couple of municipalities that are doing the Clean Energy Improvement Program. If you qualify within that program, and if your particular program happens to not require any money up front, then that advertisement is true, which is why we are allowing folks to, historically, we wouldn't allow our members to say, get your solar for free, no cost up front. We never used to allow that. But now that there are a couple places where it is true that you could theoretically get financing for nothing down, we do allow them to say that now, but it may not apply to you, and be very careful to double check, because you want to make sure that in your municipality that's true. Definitely don't assume that that's true for you.
Right. Okay. There's an anonymous attendee just asking about the study about the snow and solar panels. I believe we already put that into the chat that shows that data. I did want to just mention that where we do, I think, start to see the real impact of snow tends to be more in March. If we have there was a few years ago on my own system where we had a really heavy snowfall in Calgary in March, and that March, my production was down compared to other months. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, there's Katie's just put the snow study in the chat, so I hope that helps. Do you have anything to add to that, Heather?
Well, this snow discussion, it's just really important to think of it over the course of your solar system, right? So yes, there might be one March where it's going to really negatively impact your production. And that's true, Stephanie. However, your system is warranted to last 25 years. It will probably last 40 years. You're probably not going to have that snow. So when the NATE study was conducted, I think they were thinking more long term. And if you look at over the course of a number of years, then the impact is only 3%-ish. And the reason for that is most of the snow typically falls between the darkest months of the year and your summer months, unless it snows in July. But even if it snows in July, it's going to be melting off pretty darn quick. So we have had that. So Alberta is special that way. So we're not saying there's no impact of snow. I never said that. It's a 3% impact. It's just that the reason it's so low is because generally the snow is coming during the darkest months of the year. So we just encourage people to kind of relax and trust that it's going to fall off. And it's annoying when you see a beautiful sunny day, but you have to sadly remind yourself that even though it's sunny, it's probably only sunny for like 2 hours that day, and it's actually not going to be a huge impact overall. Plus, your installer will have sized your system larger to have accommodated that, right? So that in the summer you can offset that 3% or whatever it is. So you're going to get a little bit of, and there's a couple different factors like that where the utilities and the installers will be allowed to size up based on some of those little factors. I don't know what all those little factors are, but they will adjust your sizing for some of those local considerations. And there are some allowances for that. I don't think they allow smoke yet, but hey, if we keep getting smoky days, they might start allowing bigger systems for the smoke, but I'm pretty sure that one's not factored in quite yet. Again, double check with our members. Our installers know this stuff inside and out.
Right. Okay. We have someone asking, can we add more solar panels to our system if we feel it isn't generating enough?
If you have evidence that it isn't generating enough. So you can't do it based on feeling, but if you have evidence from your utility bills that your solar system is not generating enough for your full year consumption, yes, you can add. So here in my home, after we got our electric vehicle, we had evidence from our utility bills that our solar system was no longer generating enough to produce for our electricity use over the course of the year. So with that evidence, we were able to go with our solar installer and get a new application processed through the municipality, and we were allowed to add on through EPCOR permitted us to add on to our system. So you are allowed to add on to your system if you have evidence that you're not producing enough, but it's definitely not based on feeling. I know that's probably just me being cutesy with language, but I just wanted to be careful there because you will have to prove it before the wire provider will allow you to upsize your system.
Right. Okay. Maybe you can answer this one. So someone says if they wanted to purchase land and set up a solar farm, what are my options? Whom can I contact if I wanted to venture into this type of business?
Oh, that's a great question. Friday morning session is perfect for you. So we have a session Friday morning called Navigating Utility Scale Solar in Alberta, and it's all about how to jump through all the different hoops involved. It'll give you an introduction to that. In our directory, we actually do have consultants listed who will help advise on these sorts of things too. So you can go to our directory and find a solar project consultant who can help you with that. And you can also come to our session on Friday where we're going to learn more about navigating utility scale systems in Alberta. Because yes, it is a bit harder now, I'm not going to lie. The government has made it a bit more difficult to navigate solar farm development, but it's not impossible. You can still develop a solar farm in Alberta. There are still people doing that. And actually, I was at a conference recently where one of the consultants who works in that field told me because the government's new regulations have cooled off this sector, when you do go to apply to do a solar farm, apparently you can go through the process a little bit quicker because the lineup's not as long now. So if you do find the right land and you do, if you can jump through all the different regulatory hoops and whatnot, apparently the lineup is shorter now, so you can get through a little quicker. So that's just a rumor I heard, but yes, we do have a session for that on Friday. And we do have expertise for that in our directory, so absolutely check it out.
Okay, thanks, Heather. We have a couple of people asking about carbon credits, about the potential value of their carbon credits, and whether carbon credits are at risk through the government interference such as axing the tax.
So the carbon credit system in Alberta, I believe, is linked to our tier system. I don't think it's related to any of the consumer carbon tax. I think if they got rid of the industrial carbon tax system, I suppose, which the Conservatives and federally are advocating for, I don't know what Alberta would do in that case. Anyways, we have 2 webinars about carbon credits that I'd recommend watching with people far more expert on that subject than I. They're on our YouTube channel. But what I will say, and what all of us need to think hard about, is when you're selling your carbon credits, you're selling the green attributes for your system. So you're no longer producing green electricity. You're producing electricity and you're selling the greenness. So if your reason for adopting solar is exclusively financial, and you have no environmental motivation whatsoever, have at her. Then you'll get a couple $100 extra a year maybe, and it'll help pay your solar off quicker. If you're adopting solar because you're an environmentalist or you have some concern for the environment, selling your carbon credits means that you're allowing someone else to produce as much carbon as you are taking out of the atmosphere. So you're giving them your emission reductions. You're selling off your emission reductions. So you are no longer reducing your emission, reducing greenhouse gas in the environment. So it's just very important to think that through. So it's fine if you want to sell your carbon credits, if you can't afford solar without that extra little financial incentive. I understand that, and there are people who can't afford it without. But it is very important, if you are considerate of the environment, to think about the fact that basically through selling your carbon credits, someone else is then allowed to emit the equivalent of what you're reducing. So there's a trade-off there for the environment that everyone should probably be aware of. And if your goal is to be net zero, you can't be net zero if you're selling your carbon credits. You're basically undermining your ability to be net zero. So just something to think about. But yeah, we do have 2 webinars about that topic. You can check them out. I don't think we have any carbon offset members in our directory at this time, so I can't refer you to anyone in particular, but we do have those webinars where you can learn more about that. And I don't know that it would be at risk, probably not, because it's a bit of a small I mean, people aren't making very much money off carbon offsets right now that I know of. So I don't think anyone would be threatened by that. And usually when different incentive programs come under threat, it's because someone's making money and then that threatens other people. And so, solar farms, for example, became this big threat because it was quite lucrative. And so people got upset, I think. So anyways, so because carbon credits are kind of a small thing impacting very few people in very small ways, it's hard for me to imagine they would come under threat. But I guess things could change if all of the industrial carbon pricing systems were collapsed in our country and in our province.
Okay, we're at 1:30 here, but there's 2 questions that I think that still have 2 upvotes, and they're fast answers.
Okay.
So, someone is wondering how they find an installer willing to take up troubleshooting and repair work.
Oh yeah, we have maintenance and repair listed on our directory, so definitely check that out. And if any of our members are here today and you haven't checked off maintenance and repair and you do it, please check that off in your directory listing, because we don't have a huge number of members willing to do that. But we do have a couple, and they are in our directory. So check out the maintenance and repair toggle in our directory, and there are a couple members there. You can also put a request for quotes or proposal system through our website, and a couple of our members should get back to you on that. Again, it's not everybody, but out of 140 members, there's always a couple who will do that.
Sure. And the last question before we end for today, has anyone in the Edmonton area had success with a heat pump, or is it too cold here? And I know you can answer that question, Heather, because I know you have a heat pump.
I have a heat pump. It's great. I live in Blatchford here in Edmonton. Every single person in this neighborhood has a heat pump. So if you're wondering how it works, just come walk around Blatchford. It's kind of cool. On a cold winter's day, you will not see any emissions coming from any of our homes. So it's kind of neat. It looks so different from the rest of the city around us, because everywhere you look, there's, and when it's minus 40, it's just like billowing. and then our neighborhood is just like calm and quiet above the roofs. So loads of cold weather heat pumps. Every system will have a little auxiliary system if need be. I don't know that mine's kicked in. I have a ground source heat pump, so I don't think that's been. I have to double check. The air source heat pumps, my neighbors, their auxiliary systems, which are electric, kick in, I think maybe a week or 2 of the winter every year. Heat pumps are great. They totally work. We have webinars about that. And they all have little auxiliary systems set up so that if your system is struggling at minus 40 for a couple weeks, there's always a little auxiliary system. So don't worry. They even do it further north than Edmonton for sure. You can get heat pumps. I think I saw a passive house building that was like in the Yukon or something. In Yukon that was on a heat pump or something. So yeah, it's not just Edmonton that's doing heat pumps. You can go pretty far north nowadays.
Amazing. All right. Well, we've hit 1:32. Thank you so much to all of you who've stuck with us this far. I'm sorry I didn't get to all of your questions. Hopefully you've signed up for some of our other sessions this week, and maybe some of you can get your questions answered at one of those sessions. You also always have the option of emailing us, or as we've suggested multiple times, contacting your installer or some of our installer members with our questions. We are so grateful to Heather for her time today, as well as to Solar Club for sponsoring today's session. We really couldn't do the work we do without our sponsors. So thank you very much, Solar Club. And thank you to everyone for attending today.
Thanks, everyone. See you tomorrow, hopefully.